my father can recite lines from the movie because I watched it so many times. So like it was a thing. And also like Marianne Zimmer Bradley, I read her series of books when I was entirely too young. And there was a character in it. Anyway, it's based on mythology, but it's just she's a seer, which is a form of magic. And I was like, wow, to have that kind of power, what would it be like in today's world, which is witches. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much. Viola, how about you? How did you get started writing witches? Is there a form of media that has inspired you?
Well, it started with books. Started with many, many books. I collect stories from everywhere. Like Alexa was saying, I went into different religions and I noticed how there'd be threaded stories. It'd be the same story, no matter what language, what country, whatever. It'd be the same story, just the stories, the same morality tales. And then, of course, eventually practical magic. Woot! And then one day, my sister and I were doing a drive to Calgary from Winnipeg. So I'm like, okay, if you're gonna sit, you're gonna work. So she wrote down everything, and we brainstormed one of my first paranormals, which was Ritual Space, because it's wonderful to have all of these people doing these complicated and exotic spell work, and with these huge results and giant gouts of flame. But where do you put it? So it was a space that witches could rent, and each different area would be themed. So that was it. That's how I got started with that.
Interesting. Thank you for that. Marianne, would you like to comment? Is there any? I know you've already talked about being Wiccan. Is there any sort of media that has inspired you as well, or is it just that? No, that's very interesting. Eva, would you like to chime in? What exactly got you started into writing about witches? Was there a form of media that sort of inspired you into it, or involved in the religion, or?
I mean, I think it started very young for me. Like I grew up reading books by Diana Wynne Jones and the So You Want to Be a Wizard series and all those, stories about young people discovering magic in the world or magic in themselves. And I definitely, from a very young age, wished that I could discover it in myself too. And then I got into reading about different mythologies. I love Norse mythology. I have a whole series based on that, and the fairy tales and all the connections. Like I think Viola mentioned, between the different stories, and how interesting it is that there's all this kind of universal unconscious. But read a lot of Joseph Campbell, and he has some really interesting books about all the connections between mythology and folklore. And definitely on a personal level, I've always really connected with, being out in nature. Despite living in a big city, whenever I get out to like the ocean or out into the forests or something, that always, it felt like there was a kind of power to that. So kind of imagining people being able to use magic and work that power was something that always felt fairly natural to me, and something I wanted to include in my stories, because there's just so much possibility there, so many different directions that you can go with that kind of story, so many different rules and challenges that can come up.
Okay, interesting. Elle, would you like to talk about what inspired you? Was there a specific form of media, or did you want to always be a witch, or?
Oh. I think, well, for me, I've always loved magic, and not like magic, like, cat in a hat type of thing, but because I'm sure that they're real too. But for me, I've like the whole Wiccan thing. Growing up, I live in Middle America, so there wasn't a lot to find, but in my town. But you could find some, and so my parents thought I was weird, but I was like, they thought, oh, she's that weird spiritual girl who go out and sit and like to feel like the earth. But I felt like that was, to me, I felt very cleansed, and I know that's, some people think that's weird, but I feel like there's so many forms of Wiccan, and there's not a formula. to me. And I found that once, like online things come, that is true. You could find Wiccan anywhere, and it's not like it's a set thing. And so then I thought, oh, in books it became even more clear that you could do that and you could make your own magic with books. And then as I'm reading all these other paranormal books, and whether it's you do it with fae or you do it with witches and warlocks or whatever, it was like, oh, this is so how everybody else does it. So it made sense to me, and it made my whole like childhood feel like it had made sense, even though I was like the weird kid. I no longer felt like my childhood was weird. So it just sort of all came together as made me feel normal. So hopefully now with everything else, the internet, and although we're in a weird sense right now with sheltering at home, other people can feel normal because we've made it more normal by being weird.
No, that's very true. Sorry, just not to cut everybody off. I just want to let you guys know that we are having some technical difficulties. So if there's any viewers out there, if you guys are having problems, just hang in there. I know that it's coming in and out, but this will also be is being recorded and will be uploaded, so you can watch it later as well. But in the meantime, I'll get back to, there is a couple of other questions here that I managed to save before my tech went down. Ellie asks, do you have a favorite witch that you've written, or a favorite witch from another series or book from an author that you've read? Viola, I'm going to start this way.
Damn, I thought I'd have a chance to do some quick research.
Putting you on the spot.
And I can't remember my character's name. But yeah, I had a character in Binding Magic, and she does the whole add the herbs together, do the enchantment kind of thing, and it just worked for her. Of course, there were mitigating circumstances for that. That's in the same series as Ritual Space. But yeah, she's my favorite designed character. She has the most going on. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I like writing the characters that draw their power from the soil. Basically, they draw it from other living beings. They pull it out of stuff and then reuse it. But it's all natural. Nothing just poofs into being. Nothing just disappears. It all has to come from somewhere and go from somewhere. And I like that.
So no cat in the hat thing. It's more like a naturalist.
Yeah, very, very well. I'm a big fan of physics, and it comes up across in some of my sci-fi. But I like to have everything have an origin point, and flexing and bending reality a little bit. You can get to the point where I finish, but it's not too far off where like Nova and the Hubble projections that people keep sending me are from. And you know what? Witchcraft in space, you have stars to play with. That's next.
That's something to look forward to, actually. I'm excited to see how you do that. Jenn, how about you? Do you have a favorite witch that you've written, or that you've read from someone else's series or book?
I adore Robin's witch. Oh, that is funny. It just cracks me up. For me, I'm torn between the witch that I've just written, so Maeve Hummingbird Moonchild, who is classed as the worst witch in the world, can't even light a candle, is as useless as a turd, as she's told in the story. I fell in love with her while I was writing it, but then I have book 1 in a series of 3 that's out called Ebony, and she's part of the Trinity series, and she's actually a Wiccan, warlock hybrid with a vampire, or a Nightwalker as they're called in the story. So she was completely lost from her family, and her sisters found her. Now the series is about 3 sisters, so you got Ebony, Ivory, and Scarlet. My favorite out of the 3 is Ivory, because she's so stupid it's untrue. Like, I think there's a quote in one of my books that she's like, she mentions something and Ebony says, hold the phone. you know about Harry Potter, yet you don't know who the Spice Girls are or something like that. She's so stupid and dumb, but she's got so much heart and so much soul that you can't help but love her, even though she's daft as a brush. And then favorite character again, Practical Magic, all the way. I'm gonna have to watch that later in bed. Sorry.
Marianne, I'll bump down to you. So, is there a favorite witch that you've written or that you've read?
I love all my witches, but I think my favorite has to be Rowan Corbett. She is the main heroine in my Legend series, and she's a blood witch. She's also a teenager. She's 18 or almost 18, and she's coming into her own, and she hates it. All she wants to do is just be a normal teenager, take her exams, and just be like everybody else. But she's not. And she's a character that carries through the whole series. There's 3 books in the series, and I'm going to be writing a prequel next month for it as well. She comes from a completely witchy family that grew up in Sleepy Hollow, New York. So she's my favorite. But a lot of my stories, they tend to. I reference the witch trials in Salem an awful lot, because of just the history and so forth. So there's always some kind of a power struggle. And also the people don't know it, but back in the day in Sleepy Hollow, in the legend of Sleepy Hollow, there was a town witch, and her name was Hulda. So she plays a role in it too. So research is important, but Rowan is my favorite of my witches. But if I had to pick a character from another person's series, I guess I'd have to go with the Rachel Morgan series, because I wanted to be her, when with the series from Kim Harrison, I wanted to be her. So she was my favorite character.
All right. How about we move over to Eva? I know that all characters are your babies. I know that, but is there a particular witch that you are fond of, just a slight tad more than the others?
Well, I did just in January finish writing the Royals of Villain Academy series, and the main character, Rory, was really a lot of fun to write, because for a few reasons. One is that she doesn't even know that she has magical powers, because they've been suppressed until the beginning of the story. So she gets to go through the whole discovery of, I actually have magic, and how do I use it, and navigating this world she's never been familiar with before. But also because I created a world where there are 2 different types of magic, and it's either fueled by there are joymancers who can stir up joy in people, and that fuels their magic, and there are fearmancers who can stir up fear, and they get their power from that. And she's grown up adopted by joymancers and thinks that's the only kind of magic out there, and then finds out that she's actually the daughter of a powerful fearmancer family. So she needs to figure out how to use what would generally be considered dark magic, because a lot of the witches on that side of things are pretty cruel to people, because they go around doing things to terrify people so they can have power. And she needs to figure out how she can kind of keep the morals that she learned from her original family, and still, do good in the world, and not cause harm, but using fear so that she can have power, and that balancing act, and that way of kind of subverting the idea of, well, all fear is bad, but well, maybe there are actually ways that you could generate magic with it that wouldn't be harmful, was really, really interesting to explore.
Okay, all right. I think we'll just skip over Elle. How about you? Is there any particular one of your character witches that you liked more than just a tad more than the others, or someone in the series that you'd like to mention instead?
I love my Fae Queen because she's amazing and she's funny, but she's also really badass. She's and she kind of goes through all the books, so she kind of pops up, and So I like that. I like, and like with Robin Peterman's, she's one of my favorite people, author. And so she has a, you know, a character that even though they've had their happily ever after, so they're not going to break up. When they pop up in other books, I like that. I like that about when other authors do that too. So like if I know I'm going to see that person, just to have their little wit or whatever pop up. I like that. So my girl, Jenna is her name, Genevieve. She's my favorite. And Robin's, you meet her in her first book, but her name is escaping me.
That's okay.
But yeah, she's my favorite. But yeah, I just like to see a character pop up, you know, again and again. But know that they're happy. Don't break them up.
Fair enough. I like that too when they pop up from time to time as they go through the series. I like that too.
Yeah.
Alexa, I'm going to skip up to you now. Who is your favorite witch in your series?
So that's really hard. But I'm going to have to go with one who hasn't even gotten her own book yet. So it's Hecate or Hecate, depending on what how you want to pronounce it. So she's kind of like, well, she's in my series, she's Lucifer's daughter, and she appears in all 3 books of the Dread series, the Dread Dynasty series, sorry. She is basically ruling hell for her father because he is having a bit of a temper tantrum and he's not feeling too great. So she's ruling hell for him, and she's a badass. She's basically an ancient goddess who's in charge of hell, and she's sick of all the demons' shit. And so in Dread Dynasty, warlocks and witches in the world get their powers from a sire who is a demon. So essentially, like, this is kind of coming from the vampire lore where you have to have a sire to become a vampire, right? I kind of flipped it and made it so that before the demons were cast into hell, they had children with mortal people, and that's how you become a witch or a warlock. You actually have a demonic grandsire. And so the other witch that I really like in my series is Satine, and she's the first one, and I think I love her because I have to, because I tortured the shit out of her in a previous book, and I felt like, I think I just feel bad for what I put her through, but she gets her happy ever after, so it's fine. But yeah, I just, the reason why I kind of implicated demons in it is because the dichotomy or the duality of good and evil, I like to mess with it and flip it on its head. And that's really what I'm doing in this series. And I find it fascinating that like Hecate or Hecate is just kind of like this force of like good, even though she rules hell. So it's just something that I like to play with. And my favorite witch from other books would either be Savannah from the Kelly Armstrong's Otherworld series, or Diana Bishop from Deborah Harkness series.
All right. I have a question for you all, actually, and I'm going to try show of hands because I'm not sure if all of you do this or not. So for your witches, someone asks, do you like for your witches to have familiars? Does anybody have witches that have familiars? Oh, wow. All of you almost, except for Alexa. Okay, I'm going to start with Elle. Would you like to talk about type of familiar, how that relationship works? Why do you like having a familiar with your witch? Why you chose to?
Mine has a baby goat.
Oh, I love that.
Because baby goats are cute. Yeah. And his name's Mr. Bixley, because, you know, of course, he has to have a cool name. And he's a little chocolate baby goat, and she doesn't realize at first that he is a familiar. She just thinks it's a baby goat, and in his head, he's having this whole conversation about how stupid she is. So, because I like to just have like weird things in my book, you know, and just a little bit of humor. Because even though it's so funny. Obviously, like another one had said that it's going to be but there's going to be suspense and danger, and there's going to be drama. So I have my lion who's got the sparkly booty shorts, and then my witch who's got like this familiar who's a goat, a baby goat. So
I think everyone should get a baby goat.
Right? Like
not just witches. I think we all should get one.
I tried to talk my husband to let me have this because I saw this little chocolate baby goat, and they're like, there's not usually this chocolate covered baby goat. And I'm like, can I have it? They're like, no. He's like really expensive. And I'm like,
Well, he's going in a book now. So there
he's in
you
a
go.
book.
Characters
So I have
in
the
the book now.
chocolate freaking baby goat, and his name's Mr. Bixley because Bixley Dixley. And so I think it was supposed to have been, but I decided to make him Bixley because anyways, he's really cute and he's a cute goat, but he's probably gonna be ugly as he gets bigger. That's what I'm going with.
Fair enough. Eva, you said you also have a familiar with your witch. Did I not? No? Oh, you're just muted.
There we go. I did something funny to the chat. I'm like, where is everything? Yeah, I only have that in one of my 3 series with magic users. That's also in the Royal Civilian Academy series. And pretty much all of the Fearmancers have a familiar because they can use the animal to provoke fear in people. So they tend to have kind of scary animals. Like one of the guys has a wolf and another one has a boa constrictor. And the heroine Rory has a mouse, which she didn't actually choose. It was something that her adoptive parents arranged without her knowing to bond them so that the familiar could kind of keep an eye on her. And they have a telepathic link. And so that made for some fun situations in the books where she's, trying to communicate with this mouse. She can't transmit her thoughts. So she hears the mouse's voice in her head, but she has to talk to it out loud. So she has to be careful that nobody overhears. And she's in a bit of a precarious situation because her mouse can be eaten by most of the other people's familiars. So she has to make sure that doesn't happen. So that's the main way that I have that in my books.
So is this a large mouse or is this just an average mouse?
No, just like a little white pet mouse.
So you're going from boa constrictor wolf to little pet mouse.
Yep.
You're poor wolf. Thank you. Marianne, how about yourself? I believe you raised your hand as well. Your witches have familiars?
Well, right now only one book has a familiar. It's the Magic and Mayhem series, a book that I'm writing. It's a cat, so it's not anything like cool like a baby goat. But it's the cat's name is Sylvester, and I kind of followed suit because it's Robin's world, and Robin has her Zelda has 3 cats, and they're all a bunch of ball lickers. So my cat is a ball licker too. But whereas like Zelda's cats all speak with like they came from the Bronx in New York, mine actually sounds like he's Mr. Belvedere, he's or Carson from Downton Abbey, so he's got a proper madame kind of attitude. But I am writing a witchy cozy mystery series right now that'll be out in the fall. It's called Makeover Mysteries, and it's the 3 witchy sisters, and they do have a cat called Widdershins, and Widdershins is the Wiccan directional when you're casting a circle and you're cutting your circle and it's counterclockwise to the sun. So and it kind of means bad luck. So this cat is always getting into issues. He's getting near his tail, in the back of a rocking chair, things like that. So he's not a very lucky familiar. So anyway, so that'll be out in the fall, hopefully. So yeah.
Fantastic. We'll look for that in the fall. Jenn, how about yourself? I believe you also raised your hand. You've got a familiar with your witch?
Yeah, I mentioned him earlier. It's for the Magic and Mayhem series. Is the only familiar I have at the moment. Benki the pigeon.
Yes, the Tourette's pigeon.
The Tourette's pigeon, who doesn't know how to be a familiar, can't read, has an addiction to poker.
I don't know.
And his best friend is a parrot who's a ghost.
I'm not sure whether to feel pity for him or the witch, but
to be honest, when I started writing him, I was like, I hate this familiar. What have I done? I really don't like him. And then I came to a moment, and I was talking to a fellow author, and she pointed me in the right direction, says, do something. And I was reading back on what I'd written about him, and I went, you know what? I'll make it so he can't read, and that's why he's so shit. So she's like, right, you're boss-eyed, we better get you some glasses. You need to learn to read. Stop playing poker, because his best friend's a parrot called Denzel, who's a ghost.
Sounds like a...
And this all takes place in Kraken's Hole. So look out for it in June.
We will definitely be looking out for that one in June. A Tourette's pigeon, I love it. Alexa, I just want to double check. I don't think you raised your hand, but familiar? No,
Well,
familiar?
So the thing is that I can't say anything yet.
Okay, we can skip
I don't
it.
want to spoil anything if I have readers watching. I don't want to. So I'm just going to be like, catch you later.
You got it. No problem. We'll move over. Last but certainly not least, Viola. See what I did? I went to you last this time to give you the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Because I have 3. There's one in Ritual Space. It's a bunny rabbit that steals power tools. I can't remember his name. I wrote it like close to a decade ago, so I can't quite remember his name. Then there's a new familiar in my what is it called? In the Wakeman Chronicles. It's a dragon.
Okay.
Who likes to sit on the main character because she's cold. She's half human, half ghost. It's very complicated. It was quite the evening for her parents. And then the most popular familiar I have is Mr. E from the Hell Kitten Chronicles, which are named after him. And he is named after my cat. And Mr. E, in this case, he's a familiar. And he's been handed down. He was originally a warlock who was sentenced to serve families that he had injured by killing members of their families. So he's just too powerful to get rid of. So they make him serve these other families. And the main character of that series, it's just her turn. She didn't realize that she'd be getting a familiar. She thought she'd get a cat or like a normal kitten or an aardvark or something. But she went in, he manifested. She thought of the thing that she wanted most as being a young college student away from home for the first time with nobody there to support her. She wanted a kitten. So she turned an ancient psychopath into an itty bitty black kitten. And he occasionally, he wears like little outfits throughout the series, like galoshes and umbrellas and welding gear. And he doesn't acknowledge this. He is a master mage, and everyone will know it. So, but yeah, so those are my familiars.
There's a lot of love for Mr. E on this chat right now. I mentioned that.
Yes, the large Mr. E is 18 pounds of very uncoordinated fluff.
Will he make an appearance on camera by any chance? No?
Oh, he will not. He will not. Okay. He's not. Their mother was feral, and my mother rescued her. So we got 2 of the kittens, and we got 2 of them adopted, and she kept 1 from this litter. So we were going through a reno, and I was locked out of my bedroom by the reno for the first few months. And so I was sleeping in a room with 2 kittens and an air mattress. We went through 2 before we went to the cot. And then I realized they're truly nocturnal creatures. They'd run up underneath me and just smack me in the back and other bits. That's when I realized that they were evil. And that's when Mr. E came to be.
That is a fantastic origin story.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Okay, I'm going to shift gears from familiars into another question from one of our viewers here. And it is, what is the strangest thing you had your witch do? Strangest thing, guys. And if it's dirty or funny, all the better. Just saying. Does anybody want to go first for a show of hands, or shall I just pick out of a hat? You guys are so silent all of a sudden. Okay, you know what, Eva, you're looking right at me. I'm going to you. What is the strangest thing you had your witch do?
I'm trying to think about that. I'm like, what is really, really strange? I mean, like, if we want to talk like sexy, my heroine in the Witches Consort series, in that series, only the women can have magical power, and they get their power through intimate relations with the men. And she ends the first book by getting it on with her 5 now magically connected husbands. So that made for a very interesting scene.
I feel like she's fueled with power then by the end.
Oh yes, she is very powerful after that.
Fair enough. I am going to move it. I'll go to Lexa. I feel like you're trying to raise a hand over there.
I was scratching my face, but it's fine. I can go. I guess the weirdest thing, like the strangest thing, and just because I had a hard time coming back from it, was that my character that I tortured the hell out of, she was very angry that her parents wouldn't let her date this one warlock because he was beneath them. So she was like, oh, I can't talk to him. Fine. I'm under a curse. I can't speak for a year. I'm mute. So that was when she was a secondary character in another series. And then when I was like, oh, I'll give her her own book, I was like, fuck, how do I come back from this like super immature thing of like, yeah, well, I'm not going to talk now. Right. So I was like, okay, so now she's older, she's matured, she's learned from life, like, how do you get back from that? It was just a very interesting position because, sometimes these characters are just side characters and you're like, oh, they can do whatever. It doesn't really matter. But then you get attached to them and they clamor for their own book. And you're just like, oh, I kind of messed up with that, didn't I? But it was fine. It ended up working perfectly. But it was just like, after that, I was like, oh, right. She's been mute for a year. So that's pretty much it for me.
Fantastic. Elle, how about you? What's the strangest thing you've had your witch do? Oh,
I don't know if I really make them do anything that I consider strange. I torture a lot of my people, so that's not, to me, it's not strange. I don't know.
I like the comment. I torture a lot of people, so I'm not really sure what's the story.
I know, I really do. It's like they torture, but then they come back and they're better. I'll have my people be like, I have one girl who's like, she has an eidetic memory, so like she'll tend to rattle off like she knew everything about tequila making, like, oh, it's from this, at this moment I can't think because I have it wrote down. I'm not smart. My people are smart. And so she'll talk about the whatever fruit thing it is, and she'll rattle off as she's throwing up, because that's what she drank too much tequila. And so she's rattling off what it comes from. And so maybe that's weird probably to somebody, but as I'm writing, I think it's funny. I'm hoping, but I do have a friend who makes her, like the whole throwing up thing makes her nauseous herself. So she told me she couldn't read that book. So maybe so I'm weird, but.
No, that's interesting.
So yeah, that's weird. I guess that is weird. I would have my girl throw up while describing how tequila is made. That's probably weird. Yeah.
I like it. It's a good one. Jenn, I'll move over to you. What is the strangest, weirdest, or interesting thing that your witch has done?
Now you're asking. I have one witch in a recently released book called Earth Dragon's Claim, and she's a descendant of Morgana and Merlin. So she's quite powerful but doesn't know it. She obviously biffs a dragon. And sets them free without knowing it. But then I think the strangest thing I've written in my witchy stories were my bad guy in my Trinity series, the Warlock. He actually pinned a werewolf and melted him to the wall as a torture and left him there half alive to watch everything else going on. And he's still there to this day. And I got told, oh, I only write fluffy. And then I was reminded, you put a werewolf in the floor or the wall. You melted him, Jenn. You can write dark. And I went, oh, yeah, I forgot that.
Is he ever coming back?
he's still stuck in the wall in the warlock's house. So I don't know. He was a minion, so he didn't do well enough. So we pinned him and melted him, and I totally glossed over the fact that I wrote that. I must have been drunk or something.
Fair enough. My heart goes out to him, though. I think I have a soft spot for werewolves. Marianne, how about yourself? What is the strangest or interesting thing that your witch has done?
That's kind of a hard question, but since the other books are still in works in progress, I'll leave them be. But of blood of Blood and Magic, which is book 8 in my Cursed by Blood series, my witches, their blood is it's a crapshoot for vampires. Well, either they'll give them the biggest thrill of their life, or it could kill them. So in the opening scene, and I should backtrack a little bit. My main character, she was adopted, and on a camping trip with her family, her entire family is massacred by rogue vampires, and she's the only one who lives, and she cannot understand why they didn't go for her as well, until she finds out later on that she's a witch, and they smelled her blood, so therefore, no, thanks, but no thanks. So she's a vigilante now, and so she likes to wait outside vampire clubs in the heart of Manhattan, and she's dressed like a complete slut, and she pretends that she's really drunk, and she mixes her blood with like vodka, and she kind of pours it all over her and smears it between her legs and so forth, and she uses herself as bait to try and lure them in so that she could, so anyway, so that's the strangest thing that I've had her do. But that's exactly how she ends up meeting the guy who ends up being her mate, who happens to be a vampire. So that's in a Blood and Magic.
That's strange.
So anyway, yeah, dark is good sometimes. So.
It is. Viola, back to you now.
Okay, I don't know if you can see this. I'm gonna try and put it up near the camera.
It's a cat. Oh, it's your cat.
That's Mr. E.
Well, there you go, guys.
That's Mr. E. That's what he looks like now. I was taken this week, and that is a 5-gallon bag, by the way. So he is not a petite dude. No, you feel it when he walks on you at night. The strangest thing that I've had one of my characters do is in Dragon Undone, I had the character create a banishing spell to kick all of the dragons out of the town she was living in. It was a very dragon-centric area. And so she goes and she casts the spell, and it explodes, and this giant kind of vortex sucks up all the dragons, and it grabs her as well, and she gets dropped to the other side naked, and that's when she realizes she was adopted. So
sorry.
Chapter 1.
Sorry, continue.
No, that's pretty well it. She casts the spell to banish the dragons, and then it turns out she has dragon characteristics that just haven't activated yet. So she was raised with magic, and she knew magic, and she does magic, and dragons aren't supposed to do magic. So now her father is stuck. Now all dragons are banished from the area. Her father, the wizard, is stuck on one side of the wall. She's stuck on the other, and all the dragons know that she was the one who cast the spell.
Wow.
Because she's the only one who could cast the spell. So one good guy who ends up being her mate, who's been hitting on her and like trying to court her for a while, but her father hasn't really been enthused by the idea. He scoops her up and he takes her to safety, and then they work their stuff out from there. And that's chapter 2.
Well, thank you very much for that.
So there, and now you've seen what the cat looks like. It actually does exist, and it actually is freaking huge. It's not a goat, but the goats are coming next year, Elle. I'm getting goats next year. Little tiny baby goats.
Oh. We are coming to 5:30, so we're coming to a close. But before we go, I'd like each one of you to just take a couple of seconds to tell us what you're working on now and what can we expect from you guys. What's your latest book? I will start with Jenn at the top here. Jenn, what are you working on? What's your latest book?
Excuse me. Latest book that was recently released was Earth Dragon's Claim, which is the dragon and the Merlin-y kind of magic-y thing. I'm working on a FUC Academy story for Eve Longlay's world at the moment called Badgers Don't Ride Horses.
I love that.
Our badger is Lady Clara from London, very posh lady. Meets up with a Mustang from Canada, who's vulgar. So she has a butler, literally just written this scene. She has a butler called Clarence, who's a penguin shifter. And that's about as far as I've got, because I'm trying to get ahead of myself. I'm planning on writing book 2 of the Witch Out of Water, the Kraken Toll story, called Tale of a Witch, which is hopefully going to be out in October. And then solo projects are Ivory and Scarlet from the Trinity series, Sebastian's story from the Dark Desire series, so he's a succubi demon, and they also have a little bit of magic in there as well. And then Soul Scarred, which is a novella for the Soulmate series, which is a story of Hera and Zeus, and they've been banished to Blackpool because they won't get on. They've been banished to run a bed and breakfast in Blackpool because they can't get on, so they need to fall back in love with each other. Aphrodite's had enough of their crap, and she's sent them to Blackpool. Now, if you've come to the UK and you've been to Blackpool, you know that it's all right, but it can be a bit of a dive. My hen party was in Blackpool. Yes, that's me.
Thanks, Jenn. Alexa, do you want to tell us what you've got, what's up next for you, or what you're currently working on? Any hints for your readers?
So I actually had a new release on Tuesday. It's book 2 of my Dread Dynasty series.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's called Duping Death, Witch Blunder. Now, let me just tell you, writing a book called Duping Death during a freaking pandemic was not easy. Also, marketing that right now, everyone's like, why are you talking to me about death? However, it's romance. There's a happily ever after, I swear. I want to say that. So yeah, it's a story of a necromancing witch who owes a debt to basically Grim Reapers, but I call them Death Masters. And basically the guy who she's been in love with her whole life, they broke up 8 years ago. He's the only one that can like go down to hell to like help her clear out this whole thing. So it was, I swear to God, it's a happy ever after, even if the title seems very ominous.
Got it.
Book 3 of that series, which is called Rogue Demons Wicked Fate, comes out in May. And that's the last book of the Dread Dynasty series. And I will allow myself to say the next part because I've already talked to my readers about it in my readers group, Alexa's Baddies. Check it out on Facebook. It's awesome. I have a new series that's going to be centered on a family I vaguely introduce in Dread Dynasties. And the series is called House of Fiends. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Exciting. Fantastic. Exciting stuff. Elle, how about yourself? And what's coming out next? What are you currently working on?
I have a release coming up on Tuesday, which is the 4th book in my Royal Sons series, which is my motorcycle series. And I'm working on the 5th book in that series, which is releasing in June, and I'm working on my Robin Peterman books. I'm actually working on 2 books at the same time, which I never do, but I am. So I'm a little crazy. And so, yeah, I'm working on those 2 books, and I literally just finished that book edits. So I'm like, I don't know how people, when they say they're working on like 2 books at the same time, keep it straight, because I had the hardest time, but I'm like, okay, I'm not leaving the house, so I can do this. I think I can do this, but it's not easy. No, I can't do it the same day. I can't work on 2 books in the same day. So I know, okay, this day I'm going to work on this book, and then tomorrow, and it's not working out that way either, because no.
I'm just amazed that you guys are working on books right now, because I can really get my pajamas off and into real pants. So, you know, hats off to you.
I don't do that. I don't put a bra on every day, because why? I'm not leaving the house. Starbucks just opened back up to where I can drive through, which makes me very happy. So yeah.
There you go. Well, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing the book on Tuesday. And Eva, how about yourself? What are you working on? What's coming out?
So earlier this month, I released the box set for my Looking Glass Curse trilogy, which is a Wonderland-inspired story, putting my own spin on it and playing with that mythos. And then on Wednesday, I have coming out the second book in a sort of gothic-y, spooky paranormal series, which is set at a haunted college. It's called Cursed Studies, and the second book is Academy of the Forsaken. It also has kind of a Beauty and the Beast theme. The main character goes to the college trying to find her foster brother who's disappeared there, and she thinks something nefarious is going on, and it is. And then at the moment, I mean, I have the third book in that series is coming out in June. And the box set for my Witches Consort series should be out in May, along with a new novella that follows one of the guys after the end of that series. So lots of different stuff going on.
Fantastic. And we look forward to that Wednesday release, right?
Yes.
Fantastic. Marianne, how about yourself? What have you got going on? Any books coming out? Projects?
Well, I've had a really busy last couple of months. First off, I took all the vampires from my Cursed by Blood series. So there's four books. Yeah, 4 books in that are all the vampire books. And I put them in a undead bundle. And it's just called Vampires right across the top. So it's easy to find, Vampires, Cursed by Blood series. And then I did the same thing with the Shifters. So Shifters, it's a special edition Shapeshifter bundle, and the other one is a special edition Undead bundle. And besides the bundles, I had a release on April 7th because I like to write in Howell's romance. It's a exercise in fluffy for me because I do tend to get a little dark. So it's an exercise in being a little on the lighter side. So, and it's called The Wolf's Secret Witch. So again, back to my witchy roots. So that was released on April 7th, and I love it. It's the first book in the Sentinel Brotherhood series, where it's a wolf shifter who runs into a blood witch, and they both have to take care of these demons that are being summoned into the subculture world. And it's the first book. The wolves are called the Sentinel Brotherhood because they kind of are the first line of defense against these underworld creatures that come in. And she is the demon's worst nightmare. So, but she doesn't know why. So it's the first book in that. Like I said before, I have Big Girls Don't Scry in Robin Peterman's Magic and Mayhem universe, and I have to make my familiar a little more snazzy because we've got somebody who's addicted to poker, and so I have to do something. I'm sitting here thinking I could say, well, maybe I'll have him steal her bras or cough up hairballs in her shoes or something. But he does see spirits, and that helps her a lot because there's some spectral mayhem going on. But in terms of going forward, just too quickly, I have a book that's a prequel to a Fae series that is beginning this summer. It's called Outlander Queen, and that will be out. It's going to be a short story, just as the prequel to the first book in the Fae series, which is going to be called Eventide, and they'll both be released in July. So a lot of work. So believe me, Elle, I know what you're talking about writing 2 books at the same time. It's, oh my God, and you know what? It's really not up to me. It's whatever characters are knocking on the inside of my skull is the book that I work on for the day.
Yep.
So
lots going on, eh? Lots going on. Yep. Thank you. Viola, how about yourself? What's next? And you've got a lovely crown to go with that.
Well, I started I started these panels with the crown. I'm going to end with the crown on.
All right.
Let's see. I just had Bride of the Witch King, which was the sequel to Bride of the Demon King. You'll see all the characters from book 1 and book 2. Right now I'm working on Design Collision, which is a post-apocalyptic sci-fi. It's book 3 in the Shattered Stars series. And yeah, a woman whores herself out for goats. Yes, Elle, it's goats again.
I love it. It's goat season.
And after that is going to be the Covert Dragons. I'm going to get back to them. I have some that are being removed from hatching tanks. And after that, it's back to Team 8, my superheroes. All women, all angry, all business.
I can't wait. I want to, and that closes off the panel for today. I want to thank all of our readers and viewers who watched us today. I know that we've had some technical difficulties, and I know that Jess will be putting this up online so you can view it later on if you like. I want to thank all of our authors today for taking the time to come out to entertain us. It was a fantastic chat, so thank you so much. And I want to thank Jessica Ripley for putting this all together for us and doing all the tech. So thank you very much. And the next panel, for anybody who wants to follow, you can click the subscribe button to get the notification for the next panel. It is Fun with Strange Shifters, which should be quite interesting. It'll start at 6 p.m. From 6 to 7. So thank you very much to everybody, and hope to see you guys at the next panel. For all the viewers and to all the authors, thank you guys. Bye.
Bye.